So how many people here are students? Okay, all in the journalism program at Carleton. So I applied to Carleton, but I didn't get in. So yeah, I ended up going to Ryerson. But so for all the students who are here in attendance, your career is already off to a better start than mine. Yeah, so the book, as Alan said, is a book that I wrote and just was published with this guy here, Thomas James Brennan, a U.S. Marine who I met in Afghanistan. And that's the two of us there together at this outpost where we met in, it's called Outpost Kunjak. I thought what I'd do just to set the scene and to get us started is to play a slideshow with his commentary that I made back in 2010 after I'd spent my first embed with, not my first embed in Afghanistan, but first embed with these guys. They were there for 7 months. I went at the beginning and at the end of their deployment in 2010 and 2011. And this is a series of events that led in some ways to the book and the writing of the book, but this is the beginning of our friendship, and I'll maybe take things from here and bring us to the present over the hour that follows. But basically, this is an audio slideshow of him telling the story of some of what happened while I was with him.
Right leg. There is an entering and exit one with a tourniquet on his right leg, right?
Decorose, this is Kunjak. Are you copying the transmissions from the CP?
I looked back and I saw the warhead. It was coming straight towards Chun and I. I told Chun to get down. We both hit the deck. I don't remember the boom. All I remember is after the smoke had cleared, I saw Stachon Gonzalez running towards us, screaming my name. My name is Thomas Brennan. I'm a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. I'm with 1st Battalion 8th Marines, Alpha Company, and the squad leader for 3rd Platoon 4th Squad. The objective was to push up approximately 4,000 meters to a target building to potentially ambush the Taliban. We left OP Kunjak at about 1,300. We pushed down into the city in the book. Once we got down there, we probably patrolled in about 400 or 500 meters, and that's when we started taking pretty heavy volumes of fire.
Hey, we're moving! What? We're moving!
We wound up maneuvering on them. We made it about another 75 meters down the road where we hit an open field, and that's where we started taking AK and RPK fire. We set up shop inside a compound. We had the security out there with AMP with the RPK, and I had a saw gunner out there, and I had one of my team leaders out there with the 203 providing suppression. I had Lance Corporal Roche and Lance Corporal Bohr moved to the next alleyway to set up our next bounding position, and that's when they got hit with an RPG. We thought they stepped on a pressure plate and got blown up by an IED at first, but then we seen them running back. They were pretty dazed. They suffered grade 2 concussions. We had the corpsman set them inside the compound, take a look at the two of them, and that's when myself and Lance Corporal Chun, we ran up to the same alleyway. That's when him and I got knocked out by an RPG that the AMP shot. It hit the telephone pole right next to me. Him and I both suffered 3rd grade concussions. My head really started hurting. I started having trouble seeing. My eyes hurt like hell. I kind of sounded dumber than I used to be because words weren't making sense in my head. But after about 2 days, my eyes started getting back to normal. I could start to focus, trying to piece it all together, but it's all kind of blurry. My squad watched 4 people get hurt. My team leaders still kept doing their job. My junior Marines still kept doing their job. And even the guys that got hurt by their concussions, we were still trying to the best of our ability to do our job. I'm just really proud of my guys, and I can't wait to get back to them and let them know. It's kind of hard to explain. We came together. Family sticks together, and as long as I'm good to be out there, I want to be out there with them. We got HESCO barricades as our primary means of defense to keep the enemy out. In our living quarters, we have cami netting over the top. We paid $35 for a giant trash bag to drape over the top of that. That way, since it started to rain a little bit, it'll keep us somewhat dry. But for the most part, it's dusty. It's getting cold. We got the solar showers. Pretty much, we rely on baby wipes and clean socks. I showered once at Coonjack in the month I was there, just because the water was too damn cold. Baby wipes get the job done. And we got cots and just whatever our family sent us. I miss my wife and daughter. My wife sends me photos of my daughter, and she's just growing up and getting so smart without me being there. It's kind of scary leaving when she's 2 and getting home when she's almost 3, and you miss so much. Being afraid of where you're walking each day, that definitely takes a toll on you. The psychological aspect is tremendous here. Their placement of IEDs, they know exactly where you're going to take cover when they start shooting, so they put them there. So you got to be careful where you run to once you start getting shot at. They've got IEDs on the corners, they've got IEDs in the middle of the roads, and they're only going to strike you with an ambush if it's advantageous to them. You just got to trust your eyes and trust your sweeper up front with the metal detector. One thing I always tell my guys is if today's the day, today's the day. I mean, we do everything we can. There's only so much you can do. The mission can't stop because you're nervous. You got to put one foot in front of the other and just keep going. Because if you don't, you'll be standing still, and that makes you an easy target. You can walk up and talk to a local national, and he seems like a straight-up guy. But then 2 days later, you could be detaining him because he was shooting at you. Where they don't wear uniforms, you can't tell the good guys from the bad guys until you catch them doing something guilty. That's got to be the most frustrating thing about it. Before, we couldn't make it 100 meters into the city without getting shot at. Now we can make it 500, 600, 700 meters into the city before we get shot at. So we know we're pushing it back. And I noticed when we went on our patrol that more people were starting to come back. I mean, it's a slow process. You know, every 500 meters we're pushing back, you know, that allows 100 meters worth of civilians to come back into the city. But if we can get them back to their homes, and then we can really start trying to make a difference by telling them, like, listen, we pushed the Taliban back. You're back in your home. We're keeping you safe. You know, now help us out. The biggest accomplishments to myself are we found the IEDs that they put out there for us. Nobody's been killed yet from the squad. And we've also killed Taliban. So, in my opinion, on the squad level, that's winning the war. Bigger picture is a lot bigger than I am. I know I'm a piece of the puzzle. And, you know, if we're not doing our job, then the rest of the puzzle can't fit together. My guys have to trust me. I need to trust my leaders. If I trust them and accomplish the mission they want done, then the bigger picture will fall into place.
So that was almost, what are we now, November, September? So that was almost exactly 7 years ago now that took place. And since then, even though he suffered a severe concussion and a brain injury during that ambush at the beginning of his deployment, he completed his deployment in charge of those 15 Marines in that remote outpost. And only when he got home to the US at the end of that deployment was he diagnosed with a brain injury and post-traumatic stress and medically retired from the Marine Corps, which set off a chain of events for him that was very difficult because since he'd been 18 years old, he was 24 when I met him in those pictures, he had been a Marine. That was his identity. And all of a sudden, all the camaraderie, all the sort of existence that he'd known as a young man was torn away from him. He was told that he was damaged goods, no more use to the military, see you later. So he had to kind of figure out what his new identity as a civilian was going to be, which is a big challenge. And he started writing to me about some of the things that he'd experienced while we were together in Afghanistan, but also things that he had to grapple with from his time during the Battle of Fallujah in Iraq in 2004. The challenges of having to live with the guilt of getting 3 of his Marines injured and also killing in combat, including in Fallujah, he'd accidentally killed some kids. And these were the things that really, really weighed on him. And as we worked together, I got to know him, and I ended up mentoring him a little bit and helping him publish a series of articles over the course of a year for the New York Times, detailing his struggle getting mental health care and the stigma against asking for help in a military that really trains guys not to be weak. You have to show your strength. You got to be tough. You got to just get on with the job, man up and do it. And he had a really difficult time trying to figure out this new role for himself. And it was so difficult that it led him to try to commit suicide. So this is a very common experience for members of the U.S. military, and it's reflected in militaries around the world where guys come back and they have a really difficult time trying to adapt to life away from war. I was also at a point in my life when I'd been covering conflict for a long time myself, and I was beginning to feel some of the weight of that. So what I want to do here is just rewind a little bit to some of the work that I did that took me up to the point where I met TJ in Afghanistan in 2010.